Hi, welcome back to Thone's Hebrews Nibbles number 53. The Earthly Sanctuary, Part 1 of 2. The Importance to the Israelite Mind. This is the earthly sacrifice, how the Israelite at that time thought about it. And we'll be reading from Hebrews chapter 9, verses 1 through 5. Then verily, the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. For there was a tabernacle made, the first wherein was the candlestick and the table and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. And after that, the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant, and over it the cherubims of glory shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot speak particularly. So here we're talking about the traditional way. Why is this in the Bible? This is the spiritual roots of the Hebrew people. Remember, God's people had spiritual roots, which were, there's several places that you might say that they were planted, but they were planted in a large group when Moses went up on the mountain to meet with God and got God's law, and then he taught that law. Now, application to me, and I usually say this in my own words, but I found something which was also interesting. And so I'm just quoting now Dr. David Jeremiah in his study Bible. He points out that approximately 50 Old Testament chapters focus on the tabernacle because of its priority to the Israelites. In comparison, the creation account is told by only 2 chapters. The tabernacle signified God's presence with his people, his earthly place of holiness. It was his dwelling place among his people until Jesus made it obsolete. And I have to thank Dr. Jeremiah for putting it so succinctly, which I could have never made it that elegant and succinct. But, the fact is that there's 25 times more scripture about the temple, the tabernacle before it, and how to do that, how to make it, how to use it, what the rules were about, and all that. There was 50 whole chapters, big Old Testament chapters, whereas there's only 2 chapters about the creation of the entire universe. So we can see that this is leaning towards preparing the Israelites to be God's servants here on earth. And there was a lot of training involved in that. And really, it was still important up until really the resurrection, the death and resurrection of Jesus. And in fact, we read in the Gospels that the veil between the holy place and the Holy of Holies ripped from top to bottom completely, exposing the Ark of the Covenant when he died on the cross. And that shows that God was with the people in the temple or earlier in the tabernacle, because he was. I mean, he was semi-visible for part of the time when he was a cloud during the day and a fire at night to help them lead them through the wilderness and so on. But he really was symbolically there with them for this whole time. And now he doesn't need to be there with them anymore because Jesus made that whole system obsolete. And as we talked about last time, the Romans were right behind in making it practically obsolete anyway by destroying all those places. So that was the importance to the Israelite mind, was that, and those 50 Old Testament chapters say how important it was to the Israelite mind. But today, it's important to us because of what it tells us, how it teaches us the connections between us earthly beings and this unfathomable heavenly being. We get connected by the fact that he came down and took up residence in that Holy of Holies. And so that gives us a little better picture of God's faithfulness to us when we are faithful to him. God says, understand that this was and should have been important to the Hebrews because it was their worship center and connection to me. That's God's kind of thought. It should have been important. And it would have been exceedingly important had they simply done what they were supposed to be doing there. My personal response: Lord, thank you for showing us this viewpoint of Israelite worship to help us understand what a wonderful privilege we have in freedom, in salvation, and in direct communication with you, Lord. See you next time.